Hi, this is David Gornoski, host of A Neighbor's Choice and Things Hidden podcast, as well as some of our other programs like Science and You with our chief science advisor, Dr. Yu, and our seed oil survival series that we continue to have great fun unpacking the truth of nutrition. I wanted to give you a quick little message saying we appreciate all the support that we get from our uh, monthly contributors and our one-time donation supporters. And we'd encourage all of you to go to our website, a neighborschoice.com, click on contribute, and make a monthly pledge today, whether it's $1, $5, 15, 20, 50, whatever you want to do. Doesn't matter. Just be a part of building this new media project that we've developed to empower and inform, to inspire, to kickstart a scientific renaissance, an anthropological breakthrough and reformation in the church. All these things are possible with your support right now. So make that commitment today and help us keep doing the productions that we have. Thank you. Today, we're back for another discussion on our podcast series here. We're doing a kind of, because it's near the end of the year, we're doing a week in review, but also kind of reflective on the year and where we're at in our culture and society. To do so with me, I have my friend, Shane Kennedy. How you doing, Shane?
Doing great, David. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. So last time we talked about the shenanigans of Bezos and Musk, and Musk seems to be more of the sane billionaire class on the saner side of what's going on in the proposals for where to put humanity. Um, uh, and at the same time, though, there's this kind of general concept that people don't know what is true anymore. They don't know where reality is. It's an overplayed trope in some sense, but I saw this piece in the American Sun on their Substack. It says narrative versus reality. The gap continues to grow. It says as the march towards Election Day 2024 approaches, the narratives that define the election season take shape now. The current battle is over the economic narrative. Journalists and pundits are disturbed that Americans do not realize how things are better today than they were in January 2021. Why can the plebeians not see the contorted statistical truth? This is part of the failed return to normalcy narrative that was the sales pitch in 2020. But it is one that the managerial class is not a monolith on, and this makes the most loyal regime elements upset. This gap between message and reality on the ground is an issue and will be a growing issue as the regime is desperate for legitimacy. How do you see that? You know, it's true. They did try to sell this current administration as this would be the return to normalcy, but that hasn't happened. Everything's getting weirder and weirder. You know, we still have reports of Peruvian 8-foot beasts attacking villagers every night, and it's getting picked up in mainstream media, which is so weird, you know. Uh, and this is Biden's world, right? Biden's falling, he's stumbling, and people are so weirded out by reality that they're obsessed with saying it looks like his skin folds look like a mask, you know. Then I'm thinking, if that's a mask, they could do better for that. You know what I'm saying? Couldn't they make that mask look a little smoother and nicer in terms of his face to sell him? I mean, what is this? What it's like you take off the mask and it's even older and more decrepit, or what? You know, because he's already looking pretty bad with Hollywood technology. If they were going to put a mask on him, they could do a little bit better. You know, make him look like Sean Connery or something. You know. What do you think of this concept of, you know, he's this article is starting off with this Sam Dexter. I don't know who this is, but about the economic, you know, narrative and how the people feel like the economy is not doing well, and the media class is just so outraged that they don't understand how good the economy is, you know. And it's like, how insane do these people think, you know, people are? Like, prices are through the roof. Wages are still stagnant where it counts. You know, I guess they're only looking at the people in their little city enclaves that have jobs related to paper pushing, you know, related to marketing and other jobs that are kind of downflow of the American empire, you know? Is that what the issue is? That they don't seem to understand, like, this is extremely difficult. You can't afford a home, you can't afford a car, you can't afford your student loans, you can't get a job worth any, dignity half the time. We're getting flooded with, millions and millions of billionaire supported artificial migration from people all over the world, just trying to turn America into literally every country but America. um,
Yeah.
this is a very beleaguered time for the average person, especially young families, young people trying to get started. There's a malaise. People don't want to work for jobs that are even available, and the media is outraged that we don't appreciate how good it is.
It just seems like, so first of all, the the journalist class
Yeah,
who are supposed to tell the story of reality as it's happening, they stopped doing that a while ago. I can't pinpoint exactly when that was. I think it was really
yeah.
just kind of a very very slow and long march into them no longer doing that. But they're no longer telling the story of reality as it's happening. Now what they're doing is they're propagating propaganda that's being handed down to them from on high, from the elites and from the powerful class. And and I think what we're seeing now is, the response of common people is, they know that the propaganda is propaganda, and that the journalists are not telling the story of reality as it's happening. But at the same time, the average people, yeah, the working class, they don't really know what the story is. They just know that what's happening does not match what they're being told is happening from on high. So they're turning to, so it's kind of causing our entire society to turn to what we could call like a superstition. You will oftentimes pivot into superstition whenever you don't have any means of understanding or engaging with reality.
Hmm.
And I think that's what we're seeing. That
So the fear that he's got a mask on is superstition, that he's like a creature,
Yeah, yeah,
supernatural.
yeah. Well, because the thing is, when
Yeah.
you're being told that everything economically is greater than it's ever been, the real wages are higher than they've ever been, and there are all these gains and everything for working people, and you're a working person, and that's not true. You go to the grocery store,
Mhm.
and you can see that your paycheck doesn't go nearly as far as it did 3 or 4 years ago. Um, the only thing that starts, something that actually starts to make sense to you is, well, maybe Joe Biden is a puppet. Yeah, and I'm not talking I'm not talking symbolically. A lot of these people are saying that he's just like a marionette wearing a mask or something. Um, I kind of think that's what's happening. And I think as time goes on, as the elites keep on pushing narratives that don't even begin to contort with reality. I think it's going to cause people in a very very populistic kind of way to turn toward their own narratives that may be just as wrong, but they're going to be narratives that make sense to them from the ground level. Because these are all narratives that are being pushed to make sense from near the
Russia
mountaintop.
was supposed to invade Poland by now. They didn't do it.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and the Ukrainians were supposed to have already liberated Moscow by now too, right?
yeah, they were gonna. That's right. And Afghanistan was supposed to be third wave feminist by now. That didn't work.
Yeah.
Libya was supposed to be a freaking like paradise city, like a utopia, like Star
Mhm.
Wars or something. That didn't work out. Um, what
Donald
else do
Trump was
we?
supposed to be in jail by now too, right?
Yeah, Trump was supposed to be in jail. He was
Yeah.
supposed to be exposed as a Russian agent trying to build a
Yeah.
casino in Moscow or something by now. He didn't
Hmm.
do that. What else do they got? I mean, it's like every single thing you can conceive of. They've been lying.
Yeah.
They present, these men dressed as women and say this is what a woman looks like, and you're like, no, that is not, and
Yeah.
it's not interesting, and it's never going to be that way because nature has its own symmetry, nature has its own form, and it's like, what it is, right? And that's never going to work. But they want you to believe that. They want to force this stupid reality that You know, you'd rather eat, Shane, you'd rather eat roaches fried in corn oil than a ribeye, right? With some baked potato. What would you rather eat?
Um, I
Roaches?
w- I would not take the roaches.
Sauteed
I would
roaches.
take whatever the alternative
How
is to
about
the
this? How
roaches.
about veal roaches? Baby roaches sauteed in their and milk, roach milk, right? Sauteed with a nice sherry wine sauce, right? That's better than a veal or a steak, right?
Now, can they extract a lard, or a fatty oil from the roaches
They're
that they
working on it
could
right now. Roach oil, yeah. They want you to believe that the planet was supposed to blow up, what, 2012? How many times did they say, you know, Al Gore was telling us that we'd be underwater in Florida, what, 20 years ago?
well, and
And it's
um
as if that never happened. It's as if you go ask
the
those cultists that are still believing in that stuff, and you say, remember when they said we're going to be flooded? And they just, what are they going to say? You know, they're just saying, look, Mother Gaia works in mysterious ways. What's their answer? You know, you got nothing to say. You know,
what was the name of the little Swedish girl, the little
Greta,
Swedish girl? Yeah,
Greta.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Greta. Remember,
that's their
she
little
said in what
oracle.
2017 that the whole world was going to end in what, like 5 years or
Yeah,
something, and
yeah. Now Greta,
it,
she represents like a oracle. You know, like the old days of the aristocracy coming to visit the oracle girls who would give them a premonition of what was to come. You know, oh
mhm,
my goodness, this is what's happening. That's just theater for billionaires, you know, to scam
yeah.
people with. You know, it's nothing to it. It's this total joke. It's pathetic, and they don't have the
Well,
intellectual
and you
stuff
see,
on their
David,
side. Yeah,
right there, I think that's what the problem is that the the asset owning class in the world today, they are so disconnected they're so disconnected now from the working class. They're so disconnected now from reality, much more so than the elites in the world have ever been. This generation, they're just particularly very, very stupid. You know,
yeah,
they're stupid and they're very, very greedy. And the thing is, you can go back to the Gilded Age, and I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about about the robber barons and all those people, and there's good and bad there, like J.P. Morgan and Carnegie and the Rockefellers and all that stuff. Um, but I don't, people can say that there was corruption, that there was greed and all kinds of stuff, but I don't think anybody would say that they were not competent.
yeah,
The way that those families rose to those positions of power and amassed the amount of wealth that they did, what was out of sheer competence, and competence, intelligence, being competitive and everything. And I'm sure that there was crooked stuff that happened along the way, but first and foremost, they were competent. The all these all these wealthy legacy family members that go to these World Economic Forum meetings and everything, they the only criteria for them going there is that they were born rich. They were not, competence is not part of the criteria to have input at the next World Economic Forum meeting.
yeah.
So the problem, I think the problem is that very, very wealthy, greedy, asset owning class, they're not competent. So I think we're facing a time period where they very well could be sowing the seeds of their own destruction right now, or worst case scenario, they're sowing the seeds for all of our destruction.
I think that's why the
But
establishment spends so much time dividing people by gender and race so that people
yeah,
can't unite and, you know, kicking them out of their managerial roles and dissolving their institutions faster, you know.
yeah,
Um, and that works very well because tribal ethnic um, biases are deeply, deeply primordial, and those are difficult things to tamp down once you flare them up with systematic programming, you know, over and over and over again. And we see the right moving more and more towards the bait of ethnic tribalism, you know, and
yeah,
we see the left doubling down on its vicious resentment coalition, you know, and none of that's going to produce anything of substance at the end of the day. Uh, it's only going to produce more reciprocal resentments and distrust for everybody involved. And people don't believe, you're right, people don't they don't know what's real anymore, and it's hard to know how to walk a community back to reality. You feel, people. I just had a guest on the other day. He was talking about don't use social media and stuff, but then you think about, how so much of our, well, not so many, but a good deal of people's careers are dependent on social media. If you're a local plumber, you need to have a Facebook or something, right, to get people out there. So even the most down to earth in terms of not, you're not a Instagram influencer. You're doing plumbing work as an owner. You still got to have a Facebook. You still got to be on those gimmicks, right? And then the same token, someone who wants to be a person to speak about, and I do think that the social media, everybody has to be an influencer thing is late stage mass media mind. When we were in TV world, everybody was in the
Can you
illusion.
yeah, can you hash that out a little bit?
Well, everybody was in the illusion that they could vicariously be a star by watching those stars and being one with those stars. And maybe, just maybe, you might see that star at your local city, or you might even have a chance one day, maybe, if the stars align for you to be a star and you to be on Tonight Show one day if you did something interesting, right? And remarkable. And that was kind of the illusion of that was like the mass media era version of the American dream is you got to be somebody, a celebrity. And then everything, I don't know, it seems like it all kind of coalesced around, it all kind of came around that Harvey Weinstein deal, that came out. And then you had the WikiLeaks revelations of some of the bizarre emails that were going on with Podesta and all that stuff, and everything about Hollywood. And then COVID happened. That was the other thing. That stuff happened, and it was like it was ruining the veneer. Everybody's like, "Holy shnikes, is Hollywood and everything? Is that pretty disturbing?" And this giant, like freaking, like assault ring going on here. What in the world? And people peeked under the hood, and they started watching clips from Eddie Murphy and Dave Chappelle and reinterpreting what they were saying in the veiled, Mel Gibson, the veiled comments they're making about how seedy and dangerous and violent and scary Hollywood is. David Lynch says stuff, you see all this stuff. You start reinterpreting what they said in light of the Me Too gate sweeping, and it didn't even, we fully don't even realize how much there was there. And then it goes to, maybe something to do with children, with these weird Nickelodeon producers and stuff, all this creepy stuff. And it just, all of a sudden, the allure of mass media TV world starts to really shudder. It really starts to fall. It starts to kind of fall down and become this nightmare. And then when that happens, you've got this same thing with the pandemic, because once they started shutting down movies, movies were always on the clock. There was nothing, they would delay them for a reason, but there was always a slate of movies coming out around the clock, and the Oscar awards and live audiences for the Tonight Show, and all this little mass media world had been a well-oiled machine for decade after decade. And for the first time in the pandemic, all of that started to be shuttered. No audiences. Those guys were doing their show from their basement. So now the allure of one day you might be chosen amongst the stars to make an appearance on Tonight Show with your great musical talent, all of a sudden everything's falling apart. It's seedy, it's creepy, it's decrepit, it's weird. It becomes, and then, with the whole Trump delusional stuff, then they just start spouting talking points left and right. It becomes a harangue. There's no humor, there's no whimsy, there's no joy. Everything just really comes in a state, of degradation. And now that all that's left hanging, the only thing that's now left really for the younger generations is like TikTok and all these, Instagram and things like that, in which you're an influencer with, getting brands to sponsor you and like selling out your normal life. That's now the new late stage aspiration of American dream, mediated through the latest iteration of technology. So there was this little Hollywood musical enclave. It got degraded. It started falling apart. The crowds were not there. I remember what was that guy's name? Stephen Colbert was doing a show from his basement. I mean, once you see
Yeah.
that, it takes the allure away, the external mediation of those things being out there and above and just untouchable. Everything's perfect, manicured, to now basement. And it doesn't look good. The quality is not as good. The lighting's not as good. The jokes don't have the laughter of the fake crowd. All of it starts to fall apart. It's apocalyptic. It's falling apart. It's unveiling that it was nothing all along. You know, this idea that Hollywood and Oscars and the music thing was always going to be the height that it would always have, that it always held, is an illusion. I mean, people thought rock and roll would be there forever, and now rock and roll is kind of becoming a niche. It was dominant. It was the established finest form of music, was rock and roll, and then now it's kind of a niche. And right now it's hip hop, but at some point hip hop will become a niche. You know, it'll become a niche. It'll, whatever else comes after it. And it's like these things that we thought were kind of like set in stone. There's rock and roll stars. No, that's a niche now. That's a nostalgic act. And you know what I'm saying? And a Hollywood star. That's a nostalgia act. The idea of becoming the next Brad Pitt is almost antiquated. Now it's to be the next what? Andrew Tate or something, whatever the influencers are, you know, to make some kind of lifestyle brand on a TikTok or something and get sponsors. So now real life has become the commodification game that everybody's fighting to outcompete others with.
Well, it seems like if you go back and look at clips from television, like from the award shows, like you mentioned the Oscars and stuff, from like if you go and look at clips from like the 60s and 70s and 80s and even some of the 90s, I think things started to kind of turn in the 90s. There was it's almost like they represented an aspirational class. You know, like the women would be dressed as beautifully fashionable as people could conceive of for that time period, you know. And men in the same way would be styled in such a way that was kind of the capstone of fashion and style and everything of the time. But I don't know, now it all just seems so grotesque and degraded, and there's nothing that you don't watch. I don't think there's anybody that watches award shows or that follows celebrities or anything. Maybe people that have like that have mental issues or something, but I don't think there's anybody that looks at modern day celebrities and says I want to look like that person.
Yeah.
You know, they might say I want to have the income of that person, or I want what that person has, but there's nobody that's saying I want to be like that person. I want to look like that person. I want to dress like that person. I aspire to be like that person. Or I guess another way of putting it would be, those people, they don't really represent anything that you can't replicate. Look and style wise.
Yeah.
You know, it's just all compressed now.
Yeah. And then when you see like like Hollywood stars, just on little things, like when you see Hollywood stars having less Twitter followers and engagements than like some political pundit, right? That ruins the pecking order that you were brainwashed into. You know, that Hollywood stars and music stars were like the pinnacle of fame and notoriety. And now, you know, political pundits were considered like a way lower, you know, D-list or, you know, in terms of fame. I mean, you had people, you know, you could go back in different eras. You had people like William Buckley and so forth. That was a little bit different framework, but he was still, you know, nobody walked around, I don't think, and said, "Hey, did you hear what William Buckley said?" As much as they said, "Did you see what Dean Martin, you know, did last night?" You know what I mean, or whatever. Yeah. That was not on the same level. But now you have people like Candace Owens, you know, getting more engagement with some of the music stars that she goes after. You know what I mean? So everything's getting blended. It's all becoming undifferentiated, right? Which is interesting because the more undifferentiation you get, typically humans become more insanely obsessed with identity and creating false markers of differentiation to differentiate themselves from the sea of sameness. So you get more and more micro differentiations and that's why people are obsessed with cultural appropriation right now, right? Because in a sea of sameness, you want to distinguish, no, you do not get to eat this food. You do not get to cook this food, right? What else do you have? At that point, what else do you have? You're competing on every level in a sea of sameness. All the holiness speech codes are constantly being upgraded. You have to compete with the same language. You have to say the same words. You have to start with the sentence "so" when you say something. You have to say "like" a lot, which hey, we all do sometimes. But you have to say all these things that are exactly the same. The only thing you got left is say, "Hey, this is an indigenous way of making, shrimp salad. And if you make it, you are crossing my sense of self. You are violating me. You are attacking me." And
Dare you?
and that's the sign of undifferentiation to the point where that's what you've got to fight over, and then it becomes, an endless slight game of you hurt me and I hurt you, and no, you hurt me, no, you hurt me. I'm a victim. No, I'm a victim. All of this is haunted by the cross, of course. None of this happened, and nobody was trying to compete for power at the top of the Roman Empire by being a weak victim and pretending to be an ally of victims. No, nobody did that. That never was a thing. That wasn't a thing in the Persian Empire. Wasn't a thing in the in the Greek Alexander the Great Empire. It wasn't a thing in the Nordic Vikings. That Vikings didn't walk up and say, "I am an ally of all of those people we just ripped out." And it did the eagle, what is that thing called? The eagle torture device. The torture method. Nobody in the Viking world said, "I am the ally of all those people that we destroyed by tearing out their rib cages. And I am here to say we should be paying back everything we stole from them, return their wives, return their property, return the gold we found in their huts. This is unjust." Nobody was doing that. It's only because of the cross. It's only because the cross haunts us that is even a thing. And it's causing reality to warp, and we don't know how to deal with it, right? And it's an interesting time. The article says lies even the most oblivious of citizens can call any other regime claim into question. What else are they lying about? The manipulation of economic statistics by a regime with questionable legitimacy is a peerless gambit with far-reaching consequences. Driven by the imperative to preserve power, such regimes engage in a delicate tightrope walk, seeking to maintain a facade of prosperity while the economic foundations crumble beneath. The impact of this manipulation extends beyond mere numbers, shaping the narrative of governance and influencing the very fabric of society. Citizens can overlook fringe causes pushed into the spotlight when everyone is making money. No one wants to be lectured about trans rights, the rights of foreign invaders, or the need to fund trillions in climate reparations when they cannot make rent. That's a good point. So the touch point where these ideas start to fall apart is when you get closer and closer to the substrate, to the bottom of human existence, right? When you don't know where you're going to stably live, you don't have a structure you can stably depend on to live under. When you don't have food that satiates you, and is healthy and doesn't give you grotesque diseases, when you don't have those things, those are the touch points by which the stupid facade of all of this gimmick stuff starts to fall apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, go ahead.
Have you heard? So, there's a guy named Ray Dalio. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yeah.
He's a big hedge fund guy on Wall Street, a founder of Bridgewater Capital, and he argues that we're at the late stages of the collapse of the American empire, and that Yeah, and he hyperfixates on just the economics of it. He doesn't look at anything else. And what he's saying is that essentially the American empire, it's collapsing under the burden of usury right now. And what he's arguing is this is what always happens whenever an empire is collapsing. It happened to the Brits, happened to the French. That what happens is you kind of have three directions that surplus can be allocated. You can either can be allocated toward paying the owners, like the capitalists. It can be paid toward labor, or it can be paid toward paying off usury and interest. And the thing is, early on in an empire, it mostly goes toward giving the owner, the business owner, the entrepreneurs, the capitalists a return on their investment, and or it goes toward compensating workers.
Right.
It goes toward labor. But what happens over time is that the percentage of that surplus that gets eaten away, that gets swallowed up by usury payments, by interest payments and servicing debt, gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And next year, the cost of servicing the U.S. debt, it's going to surpass $1 trillion. And so what you end up having is a larger and larger share of the wealth that the economy generates. It's being siphoned away from the productive ends of the economy, which are paying off the entrepreneurs that took risks to start businesses and the business owners to operate those businesses, and to compensate workers who actually make everything happen.
Yeah.
And it's going to be going more and more and more toward people that just own a bunch of paper.
Right.
That just buy and sell and barter in just managing paper.
Yeah.
Those are people that and I don't want to offend anybody, but those are people that really contribute nothing to making people's way of life better, economically, to raising living standards and everything. In fact, the larger a share the usurers usurp from the economy, the worse our standard of living becomes.
Yeah. And then those same paper pushers make a lot of movies telling everybody else to hate each other. That's nice, convenient distraction. And the question is, do people have the mental fortitude to be able to see past this classic dialectic trap where you're supposed to hate your neighbor because, people who are benefiting from, crooked wars and Ponzi schemes get to continue to play their game. And every time people get sick of it, they're pumping in a new Hollywood movie or a new police shooting to just make you hate your fellow victim. And that's the bottom line. That is a fact. It is true beyond belief. It is completely 100% true that that's what's going on, right? I don't care what these people narrate. Everybody has a spin on, who's the villain or who's that villain or whatever. But at the end of the day, this is the mechanism by which people are being lulled into misdirections to hate your, you see that with the gender stuff, feminist stuff, making women hate and resent men. And then this kind of mirror on the other side where you're supposed to double down and hate and resentment towards women. On the red pill, some of the so-called red pill stuff goes there, right? Where it's like resentments on both sides. If I was a demon, I would want the genders to really resent each other to the point where nobody wants to breed. And if people who do breed are going to end up in broken families, which means the children are ripe for the picking, more likely for tyranny in that situation. That's what I would do if I was a demon. If we're going to be Wormwood or Wormtongue, whatever, we would do that. If we wanted to be like Wormtongue, we would create a situation in which you don't believe there's any hope for the future. I mean, how in the world can people plan for the future when they don't even know what their currency will be like? They don't even know what the makeup of their nation will be like. It's supposed to be subsumed into some global governance. They don't know, what speech codes, will they even have speech? You try to come up with a business that has a 15-year window. You don't even know if you'll have speech allowed by then, at this rate. It's very hard to plan for the future with all the chaos that they're sowing. And when you can't make plans for the future, you can't make civilization function. right? You have to have people who are willing to make plans for the future. That's the whole concept of capital, and this idea of risk taking. Like the Wright brothers said they were making bicycles. This is the anniversary of the Wright brothers. And they had to make plans for the future. They had to say, this structure of society is going to maintain itself in such that I can create a flying device that will work. That was the big risk. Getting into a machine, not knowing whether you're going to die or not. But then there was this other implicit risk of, will society bear such a contraption? Or will it be pickpocketed off before I can get it out the garage by marauders, right? Will it be subsumed by some communist takeover? But they had to believe that society would function on that high trust foundation that is only possible with the Christian foundation. Nothing else works to give the Wright brothers the ability to float, get off the ground. And that's the foundation that gives you trust, because it's the only truth that penetrates through all the stupid tribalism and says you tell the truth for its own sake, not because it benefits your tribe. You tell the truth about your own victims of your tribe, not because it's going to help your tribe in that moment, but because it's the truth. Because Christ is the human person, and we are to be human persons, not little Machiavellian members of tribal identification, no matter what that tribe is, masculinism, feminism, whatever ism. And so Christianity is the only hope for having objective reality maintained. Christianity is the only hope for having a concept of a history. A history is that in which you can actually glean a somewhat of an objective view of the facts, regardless of who it indicts or doesn't indict. That's a Christian vocation to history that's unlike any other religious or worldview in the world. The Persians did not have an objective view of history. They had a view of history in which it was defined by the terms of their empire's perspective.
It was superstition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's myth.
Yeah.
Mythology conceals violence. Truth reveals the truth of our violence. It's not God doing it. It's us. Right?
Yeah.
Public health didn't kill our family members during that pandemic. We did it. You see what I mean? There's always an other, a big other transcendent that we project into the sky and say Thor had to sacrifice that child. That's how the sun rises or whatever, right? Public health demands that you must take this stupid product that's garbage. It's never, no, this schmarmy piece of you-know-what, who's a freaking scumbag, freaking punk, who never had nothing going for him except for that he's a freaking criminal con artist on a big scale working for medical cartels. That dude is just playing the playbook for helping his interests. That's why you've been told to take that garbage product. You're not told that. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
That's too close to home. That's too Christian. That's too revelatory of mythology. So everything has to be concealed and gated and veiled a little bit to make it more like approachable for us. Like this, look at this story in revolver.news. A mentally ill liberal mother decides her 2-year-old son is a girl. When dad fights back, California bulldozes him, right? You see these stories popping up more and more.
That is disgusting.
You see a social media post from, this is a guy named Adam. Adam tried to intervene to protect his son. The state of California responded with a 5-year restraining order against him. Here's a social media post from Adam's insanely sick ex-wife. And I won't name the child's name. It says, "Dear Busy Bee and Dragon parents, my name is blank. I am blank's mom. I've had the pleasure of meeting a few of you, but I'm sure you all know blank, the little boy who wears dresses. Up until recently, that is what blank wanted to be known as, but that has changed. Blank has come out as transgender and is ready for the world to accept her for who she truly is. She fully identifies as female, uses female pronouns, and uses the girls' restroom. All of blank's friends have been great supporters during her journey over the last 2 years. She is so happy to be living her true life, and we are very appreciative of that continued support. The transition is easier for children than most adults, especially ones that know blank is still blank and has not changed in any way. In case you or your child has questions or comments that may require more explanation, I have school-age appropriate books that have been very insightful for our family. I would be happy to lend you. Blank knows the words she will use if and when any of her peers question the fact that they have always known her as a boy. Blank is a girl who was born in a boy's body. To me, she says, every single part of me is a girl, except I have a blank. I want you all to be in the know and feel comfortable coming to me so that if your kiddos could come home talking about if you won't talking about it, you won't be taken by surprise. Please do not hesitate to contact me via email. I'm always happy to educate and support the people in our lives with this information. And somebody says, honestly, how is North Korea any worse than this? Another commenter, Savannah Hernandez, says, reminder of what is currently happening to parents in California today. This guy, meet Adam Blank, a father who lost custody of his 5-year-old son, Blank, after objecting to his child being subjected to gender transition. Adam shares that Blank's mother began clothing him in girls' dresses at the young age of 2, with his mother ultimately deciding he was transgender by the age of 4. Adam's objection to this has resulted in California's court completely revoking his parental rights, issuing a 5-year restraint. I don't know how any sane person would want to start a family in California. I mean, this is insane.
I know.
That country, I mean, that state is out to lunch. Reminder that California law states. Now here's the thing, Shane. I know I'm going along with that, but on one hand, that is a distraction. This whole thing is a distraction from the elites because they are pillaging us. They're destroying the wealth. They're urinating on the faces of America right now every single day with every action they do. But they have to come up these insane little things that are part of this humiliation process, but they're so egregious because they tap into our primordial feelings of what is differentiated between adult and child and all this other stuff, that it draws people's energy to that. They come home working 2 jobs and that's what they see. And their energy is spent there, not understanding how fiat currency works, how billionaire supported oligarchic mass migration work. They don't, you know what I'm saying? It's just too complicated. And all these lying con artists that are politicians, they're never going to do anything to stop any of this stuff. And people now, there was this stupid, there was the dumb, the whole QAnon thing that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was in a cryogenic freeze or something. He was going to come back. And he was
JFK Jr.
Okay,
right?
Yeah, all right. Yeah, excuse me.
Yeah.
That was a tell because I said that word. That was a code word. Oh, that I was talking about JFK.
And like Donald Trump spilled some water on his tie or something, and that was supposed to be a sign that JFK Jr. was going to be coming back like that. Like that Friday or something.
Yeah. So JFK Jr. flew off into the clouds and was cryogenically frozen and then put into a warehouse to come out at this time. So that was like people's losing their, like you said, that primitive superstition coming back, right? Because everything is such a lie, they don't know what to do. So they just start having these folk kind of shared narratives that they kind of create in real time together that kind of give them a coping mechanism. And then you got the new rights version of that, which is like, well, we're going to get a Caesar one day. There's going to be an FDR type, right winger who's like a Nietzschean guy. And he's going to come in and he's going to sort all this mess out. So you just wait. It's just bound to happen. You just wait. Well, that's a dumb, basically it's trying to be sophisticated, but it's just a dumb version of QAnon, really, They just try to act, oh no, the QAnon stuff's dumb because of, all the stuff that it was predicting, but they
want to make it the 1950s again.
Yeah,
that's what they want for their benefactor dictator to do is to restore the 1950s.
So then you watch them and they've got their little mustache looks like the 1950s and the little beard is all Look, I mean, I have a beard, but it's all in a certain shape to make it look like they're a philosopher from the 1950s, and they want to make sure they get an Instagram photo of the bread that their wife is making for sourdough as they wait for their Caesar. I mean, come on, we're still living in fantasy world here, folks. Until why is it that the only thing that's not fantasy is when I say, hey, let's create energy too cheap to meter. Hey, let's cure cancer. Hey, let's cure diabetes. Hey, let's have anti-gravity technology available for the masses. Let's not wait for the damn aliens. We're Americans. We'll build it ourselves. Let's not wait for them to hand it to us. The government's not going to give it to us. You better believe it. They're going to make sure that if there is something out there that they keep saying there's something there, that anti-gravity propulsion, they're never going to give it to you. You think you're going to get that? You think Antifa can take over the government and somehow get a hold of that anti-gravity technology and learn how to turn on the car? They're not going to know how to turn on the car. And, Antifa kids can't even tie their shoes. How are they going to get that anti-gravity device out of the freaking garage? They're not going to be able to get out of the garage. They're going to run it right into their daddy's pool. It's going to blow up. What is Antifa going to do about anti-gravity? They can't even get their feet under their shoes right in the morning. They're so anti-private property, they don't even know what gravity is, much less how to do anti-gravity. What are they going to do? Storm Lockheed Martin's little basement out in Arizona? They can't even get up in the morning for work. How's Antifa going to give us any liberty? What's BLM going to do with anti-gravity? They're going to make T-shirts and make millions of dollars off of we don't got our anti-gravity yet because white supremacy. That's all they're going to do. They don't know how to, where is the people who say, shut that nonsense up. Let's get a team together. Let's actually figure out how the wrenches work, and let's figure out the levitation, and let's build our own anti-gravity transportation. Your government's saying there's something there. Could be a psyop, and you could sit around like a person watching a movie and just say it's all a psyop while you waste your life away, or you can actually try to be an American or a human, more importantly, and build it yourself. Just make sure that you're not the guy who gets the first maiden voyage inside that thing as it spins 1,000 rotations. I don't want to be that guy either. Where's the Wright brothers when you need them, right? But anyway,
yeah,
that's the problem, Shane. Antifa makes great T-shirts. They've got great PR firms on Madison Avenue, but they don't know how to tie their shoes. So we can't rely on them to get us anti-gravity. They'll just collapse the thing worse than the guys that they're overthrowing. The guys that are overthrowing are their dads and grandpa. I mean, what is that? You know what I'm saying? And most of the people that run Antifa type stuff, they're just grifters off of their trust fund babies and stuff. What are they going to do?
Yeah. They're just influencers.
Why haven't they protest? I mean, Biden has done a lot of corporate fascism. Why haven't they protested once at any mass scale?
Well, remember
why didn't they burn down? Why aren't they burning down cities right now? Why is it that they're only activated on command by the more preferred establishment? Well,
the simple fact is that corporate America is one of their biggest funders.
Yeah. Revolution brought to you by Bank of America.
Yeah.
They are living in such that goes back to TV land crash into the world. It's like TV land was here and it was up here in the sky and then it crashed. I see Satan fall like lightning. Here comes TV land. It falls down to the earth. And now you got a bunch of people who are LARPing like Foot Clan Ninja Turtle soldiers. And they know they're sponsored by Chase Bank and they don't care. And they still somehow believe that they're going to fight the concept of capitalism by going along and getting the check, the Cash App check from somebody who works at Bank of America or whatever. Like, how does that work? You know what I'm saying? You have to be in such a live action role play delusion to square that, or you're just a cynical opportunist. I guess to play fair to them, they probably think, oh yeah, I know we're getting sponsored by all the giant corporations, but they don't know. We're tricking them. You know what I'm saying? We're going to get them one of these days. You just wait. It's all part of the plan, Our little Ninja Turtle costumes. We're going to get them.
I think zooming out, the big picture of what's happening here is that the American right, conservatives, kind of like the traditional voting base of the Republican Party, those people have always felt like they were in the majority, and those people had always felt like the system may have pockets of corruption here and there, but just that overall the system, because this was America and America is a messianic force for good in the world, according to their ideology, that the system would always be more good than it was bad.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening, I think what's happening among that group of people right now in America, and I think it's been happening really since Donald Trump got elected, is in their minds there's a decoupling of goodness from the American government. Because and I think they're looking around and they're saying, wow, my government is sponsoring a lot of evil stuff around the world, a lot of bombing, a lot of wars and everything. And these were things that same group of people used to defend years ago. I remember, being involved with the Ron Paul campaign years ago. I'm sure you do too. Where that group of people that I'm referring to, kind of like the mainline base of the Republican Party, back then, who ended up shifting into becoming, like, a lot of them became QAnon people and everything. I remember back then, like 2008, 2012, those people saying Ron Paul is crazy and I don't like the way he talks about America.
Yeah.
Because they all had this bias that America could not cease to be fundamentally good. And when they would talk about America, they weren't talking about the place, our culture, our institutions. They were talking specifically about the government.
Right.
And I think now there's been this big peeling back. It's almost like the superstition and the myth have been peeled back, like what you said before, David, where they're seeing the violence for what it is. They're seeing the American government for what it is.
Yeah.
They're seeing the American government for what it's always been. An institution that where you've always had a lot of good people in it, but you've also had a lot of bad people in it too. An institution that's rife with corruption. It has been from the very beginning. And I think a lot of them have started to see that there's corruption in the government, but they've turned to superstitions like QAnon and like the Joe Biden mask stuff, and everything. But I'm very hopeful because I think that this will end with them, at least hopefully, fingers crossed, with them having a healthier, more balanced view of their government.
But more importantly, I agree with that. But it's we have such civilization is teetering on such an edge here because of our attack against merit and our attack against excellence and and our attack against hope and belief in the future. I've said before that it seems like belief in the afterlife may be ascendant and returning to the mainstream, but it's much harder to have belief in planet Earth and its future, right? And that's the thing that those who are interested in body and soul, incarnationally connected together, need to be aware of. Is like, well, great, we'll take the win as people become aware that there is something beyond material existence, but we can't stop there because then we're stuck in the same trap of the old ancient false religions. We have something else to say, which is that no, there is a future for planet Earth, and there is a future, and there is a better thing to look forward to, according to the view of history that I share, which is not a perfect direction up that way.
Yeah.
But it is a reality that we can co-create, and that's what we're made to do. We were, in the sense of this, so much of Christianity is stuck on the fact that we were saved from judgment and sin, but saved to do what? What do you do with that part, right? Most of the times Christians don't really remember what they were saved to do. You're restored to the original vision, which is the vision of Adam, the beginning, the primordial beginning of man, right? Which is to dominion, right? To have dominion over the earth. And that word has been so slandered that, by people against Christianity and for Christianity, so to speak, that they don't even know what that means. And that's what we're restored to do. It's not a side quest. That's the primary reason why, Jesus rescues us from ourselves, right? Is so that we can be reconstituted back into that original vision. That's the primary goal you're supposed to be focused on, not just personal piety to escape this. That means you didn't fulfill the dominion mandate if you're just like working on breaking away completely from the world. That's not what Adam was. That what Adam was called to do, Shane? Was Adam told to hide from the world and stay away from the animals and everything else and just kind of like
No,
hide under a
no,
tree and eat the good fruit, not the bad fruit? Is that what he was told to do?
no.
Well, why is it that's what all Christians think you're supposed to do? Not all Christians, but so many Christians, you know?
I think a
Christians
lot
think
of Christians
yeah.
a lot of Christians have fetishized or have tried to turn Christianity into an intellectual exercise, into an intellectual movement, and they want to try to separate heaven and earth as being two totally different realms that have no connection whatsoever. That may have been true but before the incarnation of Christ, but after the incarnation of Christ, that's no longer true. You become a vessel for heaven coming into earth.
Yeah. That's why one of the reasons why Jesus says, "Behold, I see Satan fall like lightning," is that the position of the accusatory spirit was considered to be a part of the pantheon of gods prior to what Jesus inaugurates, which is this new system in which the accusatory spirit of Satan will be considered profane and disgusting and will always have to hide under a victim presentation, like he was on the cross, slain lamb from the foundation of the world. Do you see what I mean? Satan's
Yeah.
position is what before Jesus was considered to be of the gods. Even in the story of Job, you have this picture that Satan's prancing around up in the celestial kingdom. He's just kind of ha da ha da ha. And he comes up. He's like, "Hey God, I got an idea." or what is it? Who starts that conversation? Is it God or Satan?
I
I
don't
think it's
remember.
Satan. Then Satan's like, "Hey, I got an idea. What do you say, that guy over there? Can be messed with." And he's like, "All right, let's set the terms. Let's try it." That's Satan within the celestial realm. That's the same view. That's a deconstructed, that story is deconstructing other gods going around the world who are saying, "I demand sacrifice. I demand judgment. I demand condemnation. I demand boils on those who are displeasure to me." Right? Do you see what I mean? So that story is in the transition of away from that view that hides the accusatory spirit as just another part of God's personality. And Job is transitioning away from that, but still, you still see him in the celestial realm. When you get to when you get to Jesus, he says, "Behold, I see Satan fall like lightning." He's down to earth now. And now the accusatory spirit is going to be something that people are able to see more and then bristle against. And then because of our Christ hauntedness, but our resistance to the call of Christ, we're going to create Christ-like imitations of facades around that accusatory spirit to keep the game going as long as we can. And that's what we're doing to this day.
And
That's
and you
why
know,
that's why that woman is sacrificing her child and many others. Why? Because the crowd tells her to. That's it. The crowd tells her to do it, and so she follows it. But she can't tell you, "Look, I'm doing this because so many people that have high value in my mind say this is cool and good, and this will give me by extension some social status." If she said that, she'd be telling the truth. Right? But she
and
can't tell the
David,
truth. She has to say it's some kind of big other medical revolution, you know?
and one thing that concerns me about about the American right is there is such a I mean they have been wronged in many ways. Like you look at all the COVID stuff, you look at all the lies about the 2016 election, you look at all the lies about Donald Trump, them lying every day saying that he was a Russian secret agent and all this other crap. There's a lot of anger on the right.
Right.
And I'm not saying that, and it's justifiable, like it makes sense. But the thing that the right have got to be careful of and beware of is becoming that vengeful accuser. And that like that woman, for instance, that's trying to transition her child and will probably try to get it to have surgery and put it on the chemical castration drugs and everything. What the American right um in that case, what we should desire is for the dignity of that child to be upheld.
Yeah.
You know, for that child not to be harmed. What we should not desire is for there to be vengeance against the mother.
Mhm.
You know, what we should certainly hope is for her to be restored to a healthy mental state, because clearly she's not in a healthy mental state.
Yeah.
We should not, you know, and that's where I think we have to find a balance, and I think we can only find it in Christ. You know, he said said to forgive your enemies,
Right.
you know, and to and not to that there's no merit in forgiving people that love you. The place that there's merit is in forgiving people that hate you. You know, forgiving your enemies and stopping the cycle of violence. And that is something that I think the right has got to rise above
But
the feelings of anger and
yeah.
vengeance.
But how
You know?
are they going to do that unless the crowd sees signs and wonders? Remember, Jesus didn't show up on the scene giving all the hardcore forgiveness stuff all the time. He came in meeting people where their material deficiencies were, which was primarily in the vocation of healing, but it was also in the vocation of expanding their material aspirations in their work, increasing their fish yield, feeding their bellies. That's how, what does anti-gravity do? It helps feed your belly more. It helps expand your yield of what you can produce. It helps decouple yourself from a tyrannical oligarchic energy system. Do you see what I mean? And so that's so you have to do that. When we say be like Jesus, let's do the forgiveness stuff, but it's not going to sell. The only thing that will sell, and it will sell, but it can only sell as you're floating in an anti-gravity levitation board. That's the only way to get the chimp out species of human crowds to pay attention. You have to get over there and say, look, forgive your enemies. They're going to say, why? What do you have to say? You've got no power. What can you do? And you say, well, I can wash your feet. They're just going to crucify you. So Jesus knew that. That's why he didn't start with that message. He did, but he always coupled it with meeting people where their material want was, right? Where their material deficiency was. So he's like, well, you can't see. Let me show you eyesight. Oh, whoa, okay, I'm going to follow you now. What do you got to say? He's like, don't sin. Go get your life right. This is a metaphor for what you can do with your whole spirit and life. So go and do it, right? When they're like, he's like, cast your net that way, not that way. Oh my goodness, I got more fish than I can possibly maintain. Okay, now what do you want to follow me and come do this with me? Oh, okay, well, you did that, so therefore I can do that, right? So that's how humans are, and churches don't understand that, right? Christians typically don't understand that. We still think we're in a critic culture, and the critic culture is all about like trying to master sophistry or whatever, or rhetoric, and trying to outwit the other. That's not what Jesus did. He was an incarnation. He was incarnating physical down payments on his authority by which people would then listen to the hard truth of forgiveness and reconciliation with their rival, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's the only way we can package this is we need the anti-gravity. We need the cures for cancer. And we Christians have to be the ones that are willing to do it, which means laying down your life, unfortunately. That's hard.
Well, and we've been commissioned to be the ones to go and do the signs and wonders.
That's right.
Which kind of gets to the heart of what you've been doing for all these years. Yeah.
Shane, I appreciate your time. Thank you again for joining me. Any last thoughts or comments but before we part?
No, just that the most atheistic, the most left-wing people out there, I think that we must be very careful not to be, not to perpetuate the cycle of violence and anger toward them and with them.
Right.
Because remember something, for most of those people, they're people with a deep-seated sense of justice, and Satan's perverted it. And the thing, and remember that they didn't get that sense of that deep-seated sense of justice that's part of who they are. A lot of them, they didn't just get it from nowhere. God gave it to them, and Satan's perverting it.
Right.
So
that's a good point.
So the thing is, it's only going to drive them further away from God and further away from the truth, the more angry and vengeful we are toward them. Right. And I'm not saying that that people on the right don't have a reason to be angry and vengeful, because they certainly do. They've been wronged,
it makes you wonder, is that just to go with that thought, does that mean that these mothers that want to transition their children, even though that's evil from their perspective, it's like a motherly instinct and a sea of sameness to make your child stand out so they have a thriving competitive chance against the others? So from a purely atheistic survival of the fittest mother's instinct, right? If you recognize your child's coming into a world of undifferentiation, you can get a leg up. Your child can, in their calculation, that kind of Machiavellian calculation, if I take on a victim garb and stand out, then my child can stand out from the sea of sameness of everybody else being condensed into this amorphous blob, and therefore have a fighting chance at having higher value in the world of tomorrow. So from that, I mean, that's how you have strategic empathy, right? For the position that you're challenging, right? To say, okay, I can see where you're coming from that distorted perspective, but this is not the answer. That's not the answer, right? The answer is not for your 3-year-old. I guarantee you, let me tell you this, I guarantee you, every little 3-year-old and 4-year-old out there in the world is much more interested in floating on an anti-gravity device one day than changing their gender. I guarantee you that. So give them that dream and watch the world change. You see? Give them that dream. Way more interested in that. Wouldn't you want to float 100%. On an anti-gravity hoverboard right now across a river and just float and
how that
feels like
in Back to the Future?
You think what child wants that less than, okay, I've got my true fashion statement and everything. I mean, give me a break. That's obviously an adult superimposition onto a child compared to what children's dreams are typically like. So give me a break. Children, the future of children belongs when Christians start dreaming big and actualizing those dreams with things that meet people where they're at, with their hopes fully alive again. That's the key. Shane, I appreciate your time. Amen. And for those who want to share your thoughts in this Christmas season about some of the matters that we've talked about, why people act the way they do in this undifferentiation time, why people don't believe in reality anymore, how to get reality back, you can leave your comments below and like and share this video or podcast or whatever the heck you're watching this on. And in the meantime, you can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com for any of your questions and thoughts. I'm David Gornoski. Godspeed.